Assalamu alaikum. I am your teacher Amna, and today I am going to talk about introduction to morphology, that is basically about morphemes. The subject is morphology and syntax. So the basic purpose of this subject is to make you understand about the basic word structure and sentence structure in language. Being the students of English language, it is very important for you people to understand the word formation and the sentence structure process. So in this course, you people are going to study all about this. So in today's lecture, we are going to study about the background of the morphology, what is morphology, the morphemes, the basic terms and important concepts related to morphemes and morphology, then the difference between word and a morpheme. So let's begin. The background. The term morphology has been taken over from biology, where it is used to denote the study of forms of plants and animals. Its first recorded use is in writings by the German poet and writer Goethe in 1796. So basically, the term morphology was first used in the biology field, where it is used to denote the forms of plants and animals. For example, basically the morphology means the study of forms. Like, it was first used in the biology field to explain the forms of plants and animals. Like, we have plants do have a structure, a proper structure and a form, like they have stem, roots. So basically the morphology word is being first used in the field of biology. So the term morphology was first used for linguistic purposes, that is for language purposes, to analyze the forms of and structure of language, is by the German linguist August Schleicher, to refer to the study of form of words in 1859. So the morphology is basically is used in the field of biology to refer to explain the structure and the forms of plants and animals. And then in 1859, the term morphology was used for linguistic purposes, for language purposes in 1859, and the term was used by the German linguist August Schleicher to refer to the study of forms of words. So from this, the branch of linguistics, you all are familiar with linguistics, is the scientific study of language. So the branch of linguistic morphology came into existence in 1859. So moving on towards what is basically morphology. It is the branch of linguistics which deals with the study of the structure of words. It examines the form of words. It analyzes the words in terms of morphemes. So it is basically the branch of linguistics which deals with the structure of words, like how words, we see many words, we speak many words, we write many words, but we do not know how these words are formed, basically how these words are arranged, are made. So the morphology basically tells us about how the words are made, how the words are structured. So everything has its unique structure. For example, you have the computer, the cell phone. The cell phone has its specific structure. The table has a specific structure. The book, the pen has a specific structure. So similarly, in language, the words are basically organized or made through basically a structure. So the morphology deals with the study and of the structure of words, and it examines, it analyzes the structure of words in terms of morphemes. Morphemes are basically the structural units of morphology. It is the study of internal structure of words. The person who studies morphology is known as morphologist. For like a person who studies morphology, who works for the structure of word, who works for the forms of words, is known as basically the morphologist. So now the derivation of the word morphology. The word morphology is derived from the two Greek words morph and ology. Morph means form or shape, and ology means study of something. So by combining the two words, morphology means the study of form or shape. Now moving on towards the morphemes. Morphemes are basically the structural units of morphology. The morphology analyzes the structure, the form of words with the help of morphemes. So what is a morpheme? So morpheme is the minimal meaningful unit of language. Like it's a meaningful unit of language. It has a meaning, it contains a meaning, and morphemes cannot be broken down into further parts. The word minimal shows that it cannot be broken down into further parts, and it's a meaningful unit. It's not that out of the meaning, it's the minimal meaningful unit of language. Let's look at the example to understand this. The word unhappy. So the word unhappy has, look at the form of word, like how the word unhappy is formed. What is the structure of the word unhappy? So by looking at the structure of the word with the help of morphemes, we have analyzed that the word unhappy has two morphemes. The first one is un and the second one is happy. So these two have a meaning. Like un has a meaning like in negation, means not. Happy has a meaning. But un and happy cannot be divided into further. Like we have divided the unhappy, but un itself cannot be further divided. It's a complete morpheme. One morpheme carries a meaning, and happy is another morpheme. It cannot be divided further, and it carries a meaning too. This word contains two morphemes, that is un and happy. These two morphemes cannot be divided further. So moving on towards next. So the basic concepts and terms that are related to the concept of morphemes, we are going to study about these basic terms, names, which are very important to understand the morphology or morphemes in terms of the form of words. So the first point or term is stem, or we can say the root, or we can say the base. What is it? It is the main word or morpheme to which other morphemes can be added. It is the smallest meaningful unit of language. It carries the basic meaning. It is basically the main word, main root to which the other words or morphemes are added. Like for example, we can say the words teach, eat, happy. teach, eat, happy. The word teach is a one complete morpheme. It is the minimal meaningful unit, like it cannot be further subdivided. Eat is a morpheme. It carries a meaning, the basic meaning, and it cannot be further divided. So it is called, this type of word or morpheme basically are termed as the root, the base, or the stem. Now the word affix, or we can say the process affixation. To understand the concept of morpheme, it is very necessary to understand about the affixes, the process of affixation. So let's talk about what it is. It is the attachment with the stem or root morpheme. Now you are clear about what is stem or root morpheme. We have discussed earlier that the word which carries the basic meaning or which cannot be divided further is actually the stem or the root morpheme, or we can say the base. So the affix is the attachment to the stem or root morpheme to add the information, and it carries additional information. An affix is a set of letters generally added to the end or beginning of the root word. Here you are clear about the root word, means the root morpheme, the stem or the base, to modify its meaning. Let's look at the example to understand this, that what basically the affix is. The word, the morpheme, the stem morpheme is teach. So we make the word teacher from the stem word teach. So the ER here is an affix. The ER is also a morpheme, but we call it as an affix. The teach and ER, the additional word ER. There are two morphemes in the word teacher. The word teach is a morpheme and ER is also a morpheme, but we have just separated them by giving different names. Like we have given the name teach as a stem or root morpheme and ER as an affix. So we have made the word teacher from the stem teach for an additional meaning. So what is affixation? The process of addition of affixes to the stem or root morphemes is known as affixation. So this whole process of adding the affixes to the affix is actually a morpheme, but we have given it a different name to classify these things in a better way. So this process of adding something or attaching something with the root or stem morpheme is basically known as, this process is known as affixation. So now the kinds of affixes. Affixes are basically morphemes. We have just given the names, attachments that are at the beginning or at the end of a morpheme. We have just given the name as affixes. So affixes are of different kinds. So we are going to study about what are the kinds of affixes. So the first one is prefix. The second one is suffix. The third one is infix. The fourth one is ablaut. The fifth one is zero suffix, or we can say it as a null morpheme. So now moving on towards the first kind of affix, that is prefix. Prefixes are attached to the beginning of the stem or root word to modify the meaning. Like these are those affixes which are attached at the beginning of the root morpheme or the root word, everything which is attached at the beginning. For the additional information, we termed those affixes as prefixes. Look at the examples. The root or stem morpheme is happy. We made the word unhappy. So from happy to unhappy, there is a process of affixation. How the stem word is happy, and we have given an additional information of not happy by adding un with happy. So un and happy are two different morphemes, but happy here is the root or stem morpheme, and un at the beginning of happy is this affix is termed as prefix. It is also a morpheme, but we have just given the name this affix as a prefix. So from practical to impractical, we have added I am im with the root or stem practical. Regular to irregular, write to rewrite. So this process of converting from the root word to add different meanings to different stem morphemes or words, this process is basically called as affixation. So it is very necessary for you people to understand this process, because the words are formed on this process. The second one is suffix. So what are suffixes? Suffixes are attached to the end of the stem word to modify the meaning. Like prefixes are the words or morphemes which are attached at the beginning, and suffixes are the morphemes which are attached at the end of the stem word. Look at the example. Happy to happiness. We have added ness, so the happy becomes happiness. Respect, respectable. So we have added the additional information at the end of the stem word or morpheme. We have added another morpheme to add or modify the meaning of the word. Fast, fastly. Sorrow, sorrowful. So we have just these are basically all morphemes. Like the word sorrowful contains two morphemes, full and sorrow. These are both carries meaning and they cannot be divided further. So what we have done, we have just named the affix which is attached at the end of the stem word as suffix. So now the infix. What are infixes? Infixes are placed in the middle of the root word to intensify the meaning. Like they are the prefixes are placed at the beginning. The suffixes are placed at the end of the root word or morpheme to intensify or add the meaning. Whereas the infix, by the name infix, is clear that these are placed in the middle of the stems. The English language has not much infixes. Means there are many other languages which have many more infixation processes, but the English language has not much infixes. Let's look at the example. Like the word is brother. The stem or root morpheme or word is the brother. We have made brother-in-law. So brother and law are two different morphemes. What we have done, we have added in between the brother and law. So this is called the infixation, or this is called infix. Actually, these are the affixes, but we have given the another term to affix as infix, which is placed in the middle of the root word. So now the ablaut. What it is? It is the change in the vowel of the root word that carries the extra meaning or that modifies the meaning. It is basically the process in which we do not add something at the beginning, at the middle, at the start, but we change in the vowel of the root word to change the meaning. Like, for example, the word is sing. To make it into the past tense, to make the meaning into the past, we change the vowel of the root word, like from sing to sang and sung. The vowel is here is E. Sing E. So sang, the E sang vowel is changed into the sang, ang, a sound. Similarly, run is changed into ran to make it past, to make the change in the meaning. Like one is talking about in the present or about the present, so the word is used run. When someone is talking about the past, the word becomes ran. Begin to began and begun. So this is basically the process is called ablaut. That we are not adding something, we are just changing, modifying the vowel of the root word to make change in the meaning. Okay, now circumfix. Circumfix is also an affix. We termed circumfix as when both suffixes and prefixes are attached to a root word at the same time. This process is known as circumfixation. When there are many words, when you have seen the addition at the start and at the end of the word at the same time with the root word. So when both suffixes and prefixes, both are morphemes, both are affixes, we have just given different names. So when these are added at the same time, attached at the same time to the root word or morpheme, so these are called circumfixes. For example, take the word unreasonable. So here there are three morphemes: un, reason, and able. The first morpheme is un, the second one is reason, and the third one is able. So there are three morphemes. Now named them. How we are going to name? We have studied that the attachment that comes to the root or stem at the beginning of the root or stem is termed as prefix. So we can say un is a prefix, reason is a stem word that carries the basic meaning. So the able, the attachment able, is termed as suffix because it is at the end of the attached at the end of the root word. So unreasonable. At the same time, the suffix and the prefix is attached with the root word. So these are called circumfixes, or the processes of word formation. This word form is known as circumfixation. So now the zero suffix or the null morpheme. We can say the zero suffix or we can say the null morpheme. What it is, it has no phonetic form or invisible affix. We can say that it has the word has invisible affixation. The word form has, the meaning is changed, but there is no significant affix added attachments to the word or root word, or no change. Like for example, nothing will be attached at the beginning, nothing is attached in the middle, nothing is placed at the end, no change in the vowel, but the meaning is changed. How? Let's look at the example. For example, the plural of word sheep is same as its singular sheep. Like when we are talking about singular, we will write sheep, and when we are talking about plural, when we are talking about many, the same we will write sheep. So apparently no change in the form of word, but the meaning is changed. So apparently no change in the form of structure of a word, but the meaning is different. In one thing we are talking about singularity, and in other we are talking about plurality, but the word form sheep is same in both ways. So this process, or this is called as, we can say, it's called as zero suffix or null morpheme. So now the difference between a word and a morpheme. Many people get confused with a word and a morpheme. Many people say that if it's the root or stem that carries the basic meaning, then what is the difference between a word and a morpheme? So let's clear about this distinction. What is word? A word is a smallest unit that can convey meaning. A word can always stand on its own and can convey meaning. For example, teacher is a word. A word is the smallest unit that can convey meaning. A word always stands on its own. A word always stands on its own. Like for example, teacher is a word, whereas a morpheme is the minimal meaningful unit that can be a word or a part of a word. The thing which is to be noted here is that a morpheme can be a word or a part of a word. It can sometimes stand on its own and sometimes cannot. A word always stands on its own, whether the morpheme can sometimes stand on its own and sometimes cannot. Let's look at the example. For example, regained is a word. Regained is a complete word, and the word regained contains 3 morphemes. How? That is re, gain, and ed, the past form. So regained is a word, whereas regained has 3 morphemes. How? Re is now name them as re is a prefix, gain is a stem morpheme, and ed is a further additional attachment to make it to the past, that is suffix. So a morpheme can be a word, like for example we have a word teach. So teach and teacher both are words, but when we analyze the forms of words in terms of morphemes, so a teach is a morpheme, a root or stem morpheme. It is also a word as well, whereas a teacher is a word, but teacher contains 2 morphemes. Teach, basic stem morpheme, with additional attachment er, second morpheme. So this is basically the difference between the morpheme and a word, which is always confusing. So this is all about the introduction of the morphology, and basically morphology is the branch of linguistics that deals with the study of the internal structure and form of words, and morphemes are the basic units of morphology to understand the form of words. The form of words can be understood in terms of affixations which are attached to the morphemes to produce the meaningful words. The affixation or affixes are also the morphemes, but we have given them different names to understand them separately. So this is all about the first lecture. So these are the references. You can take further help from these references as well. And thank you.